Hello and welcome to the InFocus podcast. I'm G. Sampath. The Election Commission of India now wants to link voter IDs or the Electoral Photo Identity Cards with the Aadhaar numbers. And it has announced, it made an announcement on March 18th, that it's going to go ahead and consult with the UIDAI, which is the body that sort of is in charge of Aadhaar management, for the technical aspects of merging these two databases. Now, this merging of the Aadhaar database with the electoral roll database has raised a lot of concerns. People have flagged the concerns over voter disenfranchisement. They flagged concerns over data privacy violations. And there are also people who have raised the question of the possibility of voter profiling and political parties using this voter profiling to go ahead and send targeted campaigns towards certain voting sections, voting populations. So there are all these questions which have been raised by this move, and there is also the big question which is about whether this linkage is going to be mandatory or is it voluntary. You know that from the beginning this voluntary mandatory kind of pendulum has been hanging over the entire Aadhaar discourse. In this case too, the Election Commission has sort of maintained officially that it's going to be a voluntary thing. But is it going to be voluntary or is it going to be de facto mandatory thing which doesn't leave much of a choice with voters who don't want to be removed from the voter ID, from the electoral rolls? So to discuss all these questions, we have with us someone who has been working for a long time in the field of human rights violations linked to Aadhaar, and she's also someone known for her sharp wit and cogent arguments. Please welcome Usha Ramanathan. Usha, welcome to the pod.
Thank you.
So Usha, to start with, I was wondering if you can just share your thoughts on the rationale behind the Election Commission wanting to link the voter IDs with the Aadhaar IDs. I mean, one of the things which has sort of been trotted out as justification is that there are a lot of duplicate EPICs, the whole duplicate EPIC thing became an issue with West Bengal and Gujarat voters having the same EPIC numbers and so on. So, what is wrong with the traditional process where the block level officer goes and verifies an address, ID, and then make sure that this person is there in this constituency, and then this person's voter ID is there in the electoral roll? Now that process is going to be sort of superimposed or replaced by this other process which is coming from Aadhaar. So are you convinced by this justification that you need this to weed out EPIC duplication and so on?
Yeah, so the first thing is, I'm not sure it's so much the two, that is the EPIC list and the UID list being merged. I don't think the intention is to merge it. The intention is to use the UID database to deduplicate the voter database. Now, to do that, of course, the UIDAI has to be functioning very well, and you need to know what its capacity is. You also need to know what implications it has for people's rights, people's lives. There are big conversations to be had because, as we know, one of the most basic rights and something that is protected by the Constitution is the voter. Being a voter in a representative democracy is an extremely important thing. The two things that keep people as citizens in a country and as persons in any territory, one is that they have fundamental rights, and the other is that they have voter rights. Because when you have voter rights, you're there in a representative capacity. When you have fundamental rights, through that you acquire the ability to speak to the state directly, to speak to power directly. Which is why the things like the right to, the fundamental right to protest, to speak, expression, all these are extremely important. And one doesn't have to speak in only one way. You can speak through humor, you can speak through pulling somebody's leg, you can speak in anger. People have a right to speak in multiple kinds of ways. And these are two very important things. So in these two, the voting right is on par with that, because that's the one way. We are sending people to Parliament for 5 years for them to pass laws, to do whatever they will. It's not like all laws that are passed are constitutional, and we have an opportunity to challenge them in different ways, but it takes a very long time. In the meantime, people's rights, stay they stay in a kind of state of destruction. We don't want that, and that's why the idea that we should be able to have a proper, clean, good, reliable, trustworthy electoral process is very important. So being on the rolls is really, really important. Also, increasingly with the number of things that are happening in the country where everyone is constantly being asked to prove that they are citizens, the voter ID becomes extremely important, because that is the one place where they at least check to see, most people are clearly citizens, but where they have a doubt, they just mark them as doubtful voters, which started in the 1990s, late 1990s. But that doubtful voter was not saying that, that they're not citizens. It's just saying that we need a little bit more work to be done before we can make a final decision on this. Now, with the UID coming in, the first thing that at least I noticed when I read all of this was that the Election Commission, which has over the decades earned itself a reputation, and especially in terms, if you see the report on the first elections, the 1951-52 elections, there's a report of 1955. It's incredible the kind of work that they did. And that's the kind of work you need to do to be able to keep people as part of a citizenry and to have the rights that they need to have and to hold power in check. That's the kind of thing you need. Now, to see them slide to a place where they are not even doing basic due diligence. If they did due diligence, even while they were talking, you forget about, a long time ago, whatever, although you need to look at it. You look at what happened in less than a week ago. There's a report that says that 10-odd crore NREGA job cards have been cancelled. Why were they cancelled? Nobody knows. They say there are basically 3 reasons why you can cancel an NREGA job card. One is if you've died, in which case you cancel it. Or if you moved out of the place, out of the area where you were earlier resident, you move out, then you go there and get, I don't know why you need to get another job card, but they seem to say that you need to get another one. And the third is if you're in a village, but the village becomes part of an urban agglomeration. In these 3 cases. Now, having cancelled 10-odd crore job cards, that's like, I think about 1/6 of the whole, the cards. Now you have them saying, now we'll go back to the Gram Sabhas, and the Gram Sabhas will now have to do their investigation and find out if these people are dead or alive, if they've moved from here. Now you're putting that whole onus on the Gram Sabha. In the meantime, the job cards stand cancelled. So this is the kind of system that the Election Commission is looking at. Why are they not doing their homework? You go a little further back and you'll find that the CAG, it's another fascinating thing about something like the UID project, where they began without a single piece of paper explaining what the project is. The first pieces of paper that started coming said that it is going to be difficult, we'll be experimenting with it. Biometrics, we don't know how much it will work. And now we know that it works hardly at all. It's huge, very highly defective. So for people who have phones, they say use the OTP system, don't go to the biometric system. Biometric system is for the people who are either too old for people to care about or too poor for people to care about. And that's where they put it. So PDS, NREGA, scholarships for children. This is where you're putting the onus of biometrics. Right in 2009, they said that biometrics is going to be a problem. 2011, Ram Sevak Sharma actually gave an interview to your, sister publication, Frontline, where he said, we might be somehow able to get everyone onto the database, UID database. But when it comes to authentication, there could be problem, especially for people who are manual workers and things, because their fingerprints won't work. And the iris, they said, is unchanging, which they found is not true. So, if they did a little bit of homework, they would know that system has never been audited. The UID system has never had an independent audit. Nobody has been allowed to look at the database to see what is happening, what's happening within it. Are these genuine? For instance, you take something like mobile phones. Right in the beginning, they said it's optional for you whether you put in a mobile phone or not. Everyone was asked, okay, what is your mobile number? Now, many of them didn't have mobile phones. So somebody would say, Mera laga do. And then their numbers would be added onto it. I'm saying that they have not gone to the field to see what the UID is doing in people's lives. We know that in recent years, John and people have been bringing to the public notice that accounts are frozen because you're not able to do the eKYC. They're not able to do the KYC. And so the money that is mine in a bank, I can't access it because I can't complete the KYC because your system was defective. And the Election Commission, if they take a system like this on, what they are essentially doing is they have a pretty decent system now, because the procedure that they follow is a very decent procedure. It is an inclusive procedure. So if I can spend a minute on the procedure, would that be okay? Sure. See, there are fundamental differences in why these two systems have come in. When the UID started, they said that we're going to give the poor an ID, but today we know it's the poor who suffer the most because these IDs don't work for them. There are spelling errors which they could not have corrected. There are date of birth problems which they had no control over. Their biometrics have stopped working. Many people are falling off the system. Now, if these people have to be, why did they fall off the system? Because when the UID enrolls, first of all, it outsources the whole process of enrolling. The Election Commission doesn't do that. It keeps check and control over what is being done. And that's what has made it a pretty robust system. In the UID system, you go to some enroller and then they will ask you for money, not ask you for money. They may ask, they may make deliberate mistakes, which has also been said even during the PowerPoint presentation of the UIDAI chief in the Supreme Court. So there are many things that happen there. Then when all this information goes to the UIDAI, there is no other verification. So they said, documents, you bring your documents or you have an introducer, and that's how we are going to put you onto the system. What did the CAG find? Now, the CAGs is the only audit that has happened, and they can only do audit as far as how the money has been spent. So they are saying, you said that you're going to upload all these documents because it was all paper documents. In the first 5 years, it was just paper documents. You've not uploaded any of that. So you don't know whether this is real, right, accurate. You know nothing. And that is the system that's the procedure that they follow. Whereas you look at what the Election Commission does. Election Commission makes it its business that anyone who wants to get on to the voter system should have access to it. So they have a procedure by which they advertise, they invite people to come in, they set up their own, the booths in different places. Then they put that up. After you've gone and enrolled, they put it up for any corrections that need to be made. I mean, it's a very robust process, and I really don't understand why someone would be proud of their institution, would not even do this much diligence. I mean, you just have to read the CAG report, quite honestly. The CAG has also said, you said that deduplication, which is what you were talking about. Deduplication is going to be your main thing, but we actually find that, for instance, 145, on an average, it's about 145 multiple UIDs that have been generated over the years, every day. Every day there are 145. What are we talking about? And now it's 10 years, and then now they're saying you go again and get yourself re-enrolled, update your information, and people are not able to update it. So has the Election Commission done its work in finding out what the process is for the UIDAI to function, and what is the point in asking the UIDAI, can we please use your system? Of course they'll say yes. And I'll explain that why in a bit.
Right. So basically, now if you look at the Narega example and also other related examples, when we see very clearly that there is the big issue of exclusion, the poor getting excluded. So, but in their case, there was this entire biometric aspect which was sort of central to access. But in the case of voting, there is no biometric dimension to this entire process. So, given that difference, do you still see exclusion as a danger with regard to voter ID and electoral rolls?
See, the thing is, if they are going to seed, that is, we're going to link the two numbers, they're going to take the UID number and put it into the EPIC database, right? So your UID system then should be reflecting the correct kind of thing. If there are errors in that, what is it that you're going to get into this? And the reason that people are getting excluded is not only because of biometrics. And the thing is, now when they're going for re-enrollment, it's a very weird thing. I keep saying my identity can't depend on an artifact. And in this case, the mobile phone is the artifact. If my biometrics stop working for whatever reason, and they keep changing, and I go to update my biometrics, the only way that it can be done, because everything else I can give you documents. What document do I give you for my biometrics? So they say the only way it can be done is you'll get an OTP when you apply, you'll get an OTP in your registered mobile.
Yeah.
You give that number, then you can update. Now, what about people who don't have mobile phones? What about...
They will come in their email.
Okay. Yeah, they're sitting with emails. Right. So, and emails were never mandatory. So all of this is happening through OTP. In 2010, when they had the strategy vision document of the UIDAI, they were banking on biometrics. By the time they came to 2016, the thing had shifted and they said, or OTP. They had one more vision. The strategic vision, it's just been changing, with such frequency. Shouldn't an election commission find out why this is happening and how many people are actually dropping off the map? Let's not forget that when the case was on in 2017, the first death of a person, of a child, of 11-year-old happened because the family was not able to link their UID with the ration system. They had, they were entitled to rations that they had. They were not able to make that link. That's the kind of thing we are talking about. They didn't have to give biometrics there either, but they were not able to do that link. Is experience of any value to the Election Commission? Because honestly, I think for many of us, the Election Commission, because it is independent of the government in many ways, and it's a body that really matters to us. So it bothers us when they are not going to be looking at any kind of evidence, any kind of data. And I should say this now, that in 2021, they had an Aadhaar 2.2 conclave, a 3-day conclave. And many people came and spoke at it, including Justice Sikri, who basically said, if what the dissenting judge had said in his judgment turns out to be true, that will be a dark day for India. And one of the things he had said is how you can have this number peppered everywhere and how that will violate the privacy rights of people. And now, at that conclave, you have Ram Sevak Sharma and AP Singh, two gentlemen who had been there from virtually the beginning of the UIDAI and who are central to it. And they continue to be involved with it. You have them talking at that conclave, saying that who said that this was ever meant for government use? This was meant for us to be able to create a digital economy. And now, after the judgment, and they were castigating the UIDAI chief of that time, saying that, what are you doing? You're acting like a doorkeeper, a gatekeeper. You're not allowing for this data to be used by private companies. I mean, they were really blasting him. In this period, from 2021, actually in 2018, you had the judgment where they said companies cannot use it. So in 2019, they brought in an amendment saying, okay, we won't use the database, but we'll use the UID number. And we'll use it offline. So various kinds of ways by which they try to give that space for them. 2020, therefore, you also had rules being made saying that this is for good governance. We're going to use it only for good governance. In 2025, I mean, the mask is off entirely. Something that was, brought in for good governance, saying that it will be for preventing leakage. It will be to make sure that services are delivered to whom it can be delivered. And the one other objective they had was innovation and the spread of knowledge. I don't know how they were planning to do that with this, and I don't think much of that happened. But this is what they had said. By 2025, and in 2025, very recently, they completely changed that. And now they've deleted the words from that good governance rules. The deleted words are these. Delete the words which say, in the interest of good governance, preventing leakage of public funds, promoting ease of living of residents, and enabling better access to services.
So these are the rules of
under the UID.
Under UID.
How it's going to be used? Why are you going to use the UID?
So it's not. It was originally brought in for digital economy, etc. But that sort of went out.
It was
2018. Then it was supposed to be for good governance. Now that has been deleted. So what is it for? Is it for?
So now they've
what is?
No. So now they've said that it is basically for businesses to be able. So the government has come in with data sharing, policies.
So businesses, then what is it doing sort of dancing with the Election Commission?
So, because everywhere that they enter, every database that they enter, it's going to become more possible for them to access data from that. See, in 2012...
What business dimension is there in an electoral...
Can you imagine what there is? If you know where people are, how they are moving, where they are voting, who is winning in those places, and the UID through its number is able to see that. So the UID doesn't need to see it. It will be other businesses. UID doesn't do anything. It just maintains that database of people and basic information, and then plants that number in every database. So in 2012, AP Singh, when he came for a panel discussion, had even then said, he was still unsure of the other things we were raising. He said, but convergence of database is a thing that's likely to happen. So the idea is that you put it in every database. So this is one thing. But why does the Election Commission want it? There are other reasons too. One very significant thing that we've seen in this past 10-12 years is this thing called disintermediation. If you look at one of the Niti Aayog documents where they were looking at a vision for, I think, 2015 to 18 or something, they say that if a public servant, if an official meets people, there is room for corruption. So they don't meet people. They sit behind the computer screen, and the data will come to them, and that's how they're going to interact with them. It has actually been a very convenient thing for bureaucrats to say that it's not our fault. At the local level, it's completely there, and it's really not their fault. Because you go to a tahsildar or
people who do these scams from Nigeria, they don't meet people either.
They don't meet people. So that this whole system is also presenceless. That's the intention of the UIDAI. The UIDAI was, pushing it upon us that there'll be cashless, paperless, and presenceless. If you're paperless and you're presenceless, basically you have no evidence of anything, and anything can be done with you, and it doesn't matter who you are. They are only interested in seeing how money moves, for instance. So, it doesn't take very much to see all this if you're willing to look.
Yeah.
So for the Election Commission today to say that I am willing to become part of that, ecology where the number gets planted and it becomes part of something that can be used in convergence, it's a very serious thing. And it can't be done without, it should not be done at all. It's not a question of whether it can be done or not. There is this weird thing that they have also, that after the Supreme Court judgment, that especially the privacy judgment, that if we make a law, we can do anything we want. The law has to be constitutional. The law has to be fair. The idea is that a law will tell us where the state gets off and where people's rights exist. That's getting distorted entirely. It's like, I'm sorry, but your newspaper too did that with APAR, where you had an editorial.
APAR as in
the children's ID.
Yeah.
Where, parents are very worried. They're saying, our children's, we don't want their identities to, we don't want information about them.
I've spoken to a few parents who, it is their view. They say that if my child is going to be studying in different schools and different institutions, all these mark sheets from LKG onwards to class 12, it will be in one place and you can apply to any university anywhere in the world. So what's the harm in that?
That's true. A lot of parents don't understand. Like many people in this country unfortunately don't understand, but there are many parents who do understand. And it is because they raised the question that you even had an editorial on it, where they were saying, listen, I don't want my child to be subjected to this kind of scrutiny across time and across all kinds of people. I need my child's, because children grow up through very difficult growing up. Most children. You don't want all that on record. Over the years, a civilized society, which is what I think we've been for quite a while, a civilized society will say that when it turns 18, when a child turns 18, when you're leaving your adolescence, whatever might have happened to you before that, it's just your final year mark sheet. Even there, they'll never ask you for your kindergarten and your first standard and your third standard. They don't want to see that progress. They want to see that, okay, you can cope with what you're coming to. That's all. You protect what has happened to them and don't make it. This whole idea of the child is about that. That, when you leave your childhood behind, you should be able to leave the kind of problems that you had with it behind. Why do you say that if a child commits an offense, not more than 3 years? Because you give the state and us, all of us, a chance to work with the child and bring the child out of it. But you say at 18, it's done. You don't carry that forward. Now they are bringing, if I'm a child and I have to go for mental health counseling, that gets onto my record. Which employer is going to give me that? If I have childhood TB,
will get captured by the APAR
the counseling session that you're having there, how many counseling sessions you've had, everything is maintained by a school.
Yeah, correct.
And then I go to a hospital and I had childhood TB. Now, all this affects, I get over it. But now we are looking, in fact, that's why this, when they use the word purification.
NEPRP.
Yeah. They use the word purification.
I found it a bit odd, no?
Yeah.
Electoral rules, purification of electoral rules.
Yeah.
Who is it purification?
And it's not only, it's also not understanding the social politics of this country. This is the whole thing of who decides who is pure and who is impure. And what is this that we are doing to people? So I think they've not thought through anything, not even the names that they're giving to it.
Yeah, I think purification is really a weird term to use for weeding out sort of inconsistencies in the electoral rules. Now, coming back to this entire question, which you just flagged briefly when you spoke about the Election Commission being an autonomous, independent institution, and it also is an institution which one imagines would take pride in its robust procedures for keeping its electoral rolls updated, where you have a block level officer going and physically verifying that this person is staying in this address and so on. Now, if you take this independent body in one hand, and then you take another database such as the UIDAI database, which is controlled or managed by the executive. Now, if you're going to superimpose this executive control database onto this, I know you said they're not going to merge it, but if you're going to link it, would it not then undermine the autonomy and the independence of the Election Commission as well, the way it's functioning?
See, there's two things in this. One is, if you look at the Aadhaar Act, there's a provision there which says that the two provisions, maybe across two provisions, where the UIDAI directives can be given to the UIDAI by the central government. If they violate those, if they don't follow what the directives are, and they find that they are systematically or whatever not following it, the government can take over the database. They can take over the UIDAI for as long as they will, till they decide it's all right to restore it. So it's not just that they have control over it; it's that they can actually own it. The central government can have more than merely control over a UIDAI. They'll have it over the database itself. And the one thing I think even a Rahul Mathan, who supports everything that Mr. Nilekani and all of them do, even he over the years has said that convergence is a problem. They've never addressed it. So when I go to vote, why do I ask for a secret ballot? Because I want to feel secure when I go and vote. I don't want to be up against all these people who might ask me 100 questions, right? Now when I go to vote, I'll never be sure how much of this information because my UID number is there. With just my EPIC number, you can't do this. But with a UID number there, you can actually find out from different databases whether I'm a PDS, whether I'm on the PDS list.
PDS list.
Yeah. Whether I'm a school goer or not, how much my income is from different databases. And this is something that a state can do. And recently we saw that, I think in the last elections, the newspapers were reporting that the central government had said that they were sending out officers to tell them, go and tell all the people who are beneficiaries of our system, please go and tell them how many projects there are, how many schemes there are that they are now benefiting from. And we were told, from the newspapers again, that this I did not see. Many of the other things I make it my business to go and see, but this I could not see. I did not go to see. Where they said that at the block level, the local Karyakartas were being given the names of the people who were on the beneficiary list, to whom monies are being transferred or whatever, and being told, go from door to door and tell them that this is this government that's doing it for you. Now, whether they did it or they did not do it, the point is that it is easy to do. And then you link it up. When Kudangulam, when they had a protest in Kudangulam, the district magistrate got very upset because one of the things that they did was they took their voter IDs and they threw it into the district officer's compound. And when they collected it, he said, find out how many of these people are on the rolls of rations and cancel it. If they don't want to vote, why should they get these rations? That's the kind of unilateral decision making. It didn't happen because it was very difficult to do then. But today, when you link everything up, it's the easiest thing to do. You don't vote for if a certain area doesn't vote for the people who I want, it's so easy to say, I cut them off even from that, which is basic. See, what used to be the responsibility of the state and the entitlement of people has now become largest from the state. And we really need to remember that.
So what you're saying, Usha, is that with EPIC, just the voter ID number, it's not possible to find out who you voted for or whatever. But with linking of this EPIC with Aadhaar, given that Aadhaar is sort of like a channel to multiple databases, it is possible to produce such a fine profile of the voter that you can virtually sort of know who is going to be voting for what, and in a way it also undermines to a large extent the secret ballot as an institution.
It will put fear into people.
It will put fear into people.
Of course.
Because voter profiling is going to be so advanced.
It's easy. Makes it so easy. It's not like it's not done otherwise, but it's still more difficult. And it's not linked with all the other databases. Now the government is going on creating systems. I mean, every day you open the paper, either you find that the UID number has been used for committing some fraud, or you find that they're compelling you to put it into one more database. So if this is the level, of course, they're not doing it only to surveil people. They're also doing it because they want to make business out of people's data. And you think about Ayushman Bharat. You have that linked there. So, it's not just disaggregated data that the government has. And then the government decides, so the moment it becomes part of that government, they're saying it's our property. And this is not just, you actually have a 2012 document. So the Congress has an enormous lot to answer for. And that is the other thing that bothers me. I mean, you sat there, you thought you were doing something great or not, I don't know. The Congress did it without having any clue what that project was. They only thought Mr. Nilekani was one of their kind and they let him do what he wanted. And then he stopped being your kind, but, he's still your kind.
Right.
They don't even know the questions to raise even today. And that shocks the hell out of me.
I think today this latest development, they have welcomed this move to sort of...
And then after that, I think maybe Rahul Gandhi or someone will step back saying, yeah, it's a good idea, but we must also be sure that it doesn't exclude, it doesn't do this, that and the other. Sit and study the thing. What are you doing? You foisted this on a whole population. And who is it who's endorsing all of this? Mr. Trump. Mr. This is a great way to hold people in check. That should tell us what it means.
So, Usha, some nitty-gritties of this whole process. Now, this question of whether it's going to be voluntary or mandatory, the Election Commission has said it's going to be voluntary. I know you're laughing, this whole voluntary business of Aadhaar. So, this Election Commission has said that this entire process will be governed by Article 326 of the Constitution, Sections 23.4, 23.5 and 23.6 of the Representation of the People Act 1950 and the Supreme Court's ruling in G. Niranjan versus Election Commission of India. So all these are supposed to sort of indicate that you can opt out if you want to. But there is apparently one Form 6B which says that if you are not going to give the Aadhaar, you have to say I don't have an Aadhaar. So what about people who have an Aadhaar and still want to opt out of linking their Aadhaar and their voter ID? So what happens to those people? So is it really optional, or what are all these various legal provisions supposed to
Actually, I must say that the UID has been a very interesting time for us to learn language, because everything means something else. So when they said identity, then later Mr. Nilekani clarified when the case started in 2018 that he meant infrastructure. It's an identity infrastructure. It's not about the identity. This voluntary mandatory has been, one of the, I think Rajendran was, when they were doing work on the NREGA thing and they met a bank official and they said, how can you make it mandatory? He said, no, it is not mandatory. It is only compulsory. So, it's like people in different places feel, you take APAR too, nobody is going to compel you. It's voluntary. But CBSE will tell the schools that you're not going to get mark sheets of these children unless you're going to put it into the DigiLocker, and the DigiLocker can't be opened and operated unless you have a UID. So this voluntary mandatory thing is it's more than a joke now. I mean, nobody takes it seriously. The idea everywhere is to push people onto databases and make people completely immobile and make everything unviable unless you're willing to get onto this. So, and if you don't, earlier, of course, in 2017, they said if you don't link it with your bank account will be frozen. You can't take money out of your account. Of course, it's happening in different ways now. They said your mobile phone you can't have anymore unless you put your UID into it. So there were penalties attached where your services would be taken out. Something that you use every day would be taken away from you if you didn't. So there is a way in which the state is working on this digital India, where they see, it's actually interesting that the government sees the people of India as people over whom they have control, and we have to be obedient with them. Outsiders, foreigners, they are different. It's fascinating because when Edward Snowden, made that great expose, what the government in America said was, we are not doing it to our own people. Our people have rights. We are doing it to foreigners. Right? Visa was about foreigners. Here we say, we are not doing it to foreigners. We are doing it to our own people, and we can do what we want with our people. That is what the Election Commission has to understand, that the whole UID project has gone on this, that especially in the past 5, 7, 10 years, where it's been saying, I have a right to coerce. In fact, you had the Attorney General of that time in court saying, what makes you think you have a right over your own body? It was an argument made in court.
Yeah.
Not a frivolous argument. So I think, if the Election Commission truly values the work that it is doing, it will think. But if it finds that it's convenient, see, when the UID project started, we said it's a solution in search of a problem. But we've actually found that it is masquerading as a solution, but is actually a problem. And so many crores of people are having this. If just in NREGA you have 10 point whatever crore people, you think about what it is everywhere.
If voters are excluded, that's going to be a big disaster.
Yeah.
For the state.
But also remember this, that whoever controls the system can decide whether the voter can be on it or not.
Yeah. So on this, I wanted to ask you a specific question. So once the EPIC is linked to Aadhaar...
Just one little thing on that. Why I'm saying this is because in the first 5 years, when they wanted to get as many people as possible onto the database, fingerprints wouldn't work, people didn't have documents, there were all kinds of... very few things were needed, even that did not exist. So then they said, for instance, with biometrics, they said, okay, try 4 times. If it doesn't work, forced capture. Just take it doesn't matter, because we want a large database. We want as many people as possible to get onto that database. A similar kind of thing can happen depending upon which constituency, who do you think is with you, is not. Then you say, forget about all the other, finer points. Just get them onto the database so that we can get them voter ID. These kinds of controls become very easy. The government today may say, we are good people, we'll never do it. But you're creating a system where somebody can do it. And it's not tomorrow, it happened yesterday. I mean, the whole Telangana experience, where people were just struck off the list. And then the election commissioner there, the officer, chief electoral officer, apologizes in public. But it's a very interesting apology that was published. He said, I'm really sorry that this happened. It should not have happened. Many big people also told me that this is happening. And he names 2 big people who've got dropped off the system. And he says, we will make sure that this does not happen.
What was the procedure they followed in striking off so many?
They used the UID, to strike off.
Mass removal of voters
used UID.
Was through UID.
Srinivas Kodali has done an enormous amount of work on that.
Right.
And they are in court. But typically, it's sitting in court. Nothing has happened.
It's the same thing which is now being planned to be done at the national level.
We don't know what they're... it will... See, the thing is, they're saying, you can still come to us and you can still tell us, like the latest, I think, on what the Election Commission is considering, is that, okay, you can say you don't want. We'll change that Form 6B. If you don't want to link your UID number with this, you have to appear before us and tell us why not.
So,
my thing is, okay, I'm saying because I don't want two numbers in one attached to one ID. It will confuse me. Will you accept that? Is it an acceptable explanation to you? You're not telling me what the grounds can be. And you just tell me this. If you tell me what the grounds can be, I'll know whether I need to challenge it or not. I can just say that I don't like the UID, which I really don't. Is that a reason enough for you? What is this? And what is this threat? Holding out a threat saying, you come and appear before me and explain. Why should I explain? The great thing about the Election Commission has been that they have gone to the people every time. The terrible thing about the UID has been that they don't have a feedback loop. The CAG report also says this. They say you don't have a grievance redressal. People have grievances, but you don't have a redressal mechanism. You had biometric service providers who did not provide the service, to the extent that they said they would, which means that many people were dropping off. You did nothing about them. You didn't fine them. You didn't charge them. Who are you putting the onus on? And the UID system is such that they say, if you want your UID number to work, you come and clean it up. It's a self-cleaning mechanism. You come and clean it up. So they actually have that in a 2011 document where they say garbage in, garbage out, we know that. But since people cannot manage without this, they will have to come and make sure that their ID gets cleaned up. That's not how the Election Commission works. The Election Commission is interested that voters should be enrolled and that they should vote. That is their primary interest. They go to the people. They tell people, if you have a problem, come to us. They don't say, come to us and, let me decide what I do with you.
That's right. Yeah, that's a complete flipping of the whole...
That's because these two systems have nothing in common. The UID is full of holes. See, when they wanted it as infrastructure, if you have roads that are going, Nilekani actually compared it with roads. He said, you build a road. That's not to say that only a certain set of people can go. You can have cars, you can have trucks, you can have whatever, motorized, non-motorized, cycles, whatever. So this is like that. This is just infrastructure. But in that infrastructure, you can have potholes here, you can not have it in some places, you decide. But it is the business interest that dominates in that, as by now we know. After 2025, I think we should just stop pretending that this is about government delivering services to people. It is about people becoming consumers of private industry. That's what this 2025, they call it good governance and there is no good governance in it.
Well, yeah.
So it's like hollowing out of something and putting something else there. So their system, they don't really care what happens to you and me. They care about how they can get the maximum out of you and me. That's not the Election Commission. Election Commission cares that every person should be able to be on that roll and that it should be properly represented and that they should be able to vote. And this time, the reason that they've raised this is such a weird reason. What the Election Commission is saying is, okay, when these electoral officers worked in different places, those numbers might have got repeated in some other jurisdiction. Now, you have this great digital plan. Can't your digital program identify across their database the same numbers coming in different places? If you can do it, what is the problem with this? That means the only digital tool that you have is the UID. You don't know how to use the digital in any other way. You can't find a duplicate in any other way on your own database. What are they telling us? I'm so foxed. And, when we were kids, we were constantly told, you will be foolish sometimes, but don't show it. I think we went to different schools.
Right, so we're running out of time, Usha. I want to go through a couple of quick questions. There's one theory which is doing the rounds about this entire linking. I don't know if it's a conspiracy theory, but it holds that this is about, at some point in the future, voting from a smartphone, OTP-based thing. Do you think that's a possibility or it's too far-fetched and not really?
No. Trying anything, unfortunately, we have some people who are in this policy making on technology who are really not, who don't know the people, who don't know systems. They just know what they can do and they keep, bringing it among people, and then it becomes an experiment on whole people. And then it fails, it works, it doesn't matter because that's a startup culture. And that's what we are seeing. So it's possible that they may try anything. Any harebrained stuff can come through that set of people. But I actually think we are not accounting for this, that the generations in technology has been shrinking.
Okay.
So if you think something was going to be change over 10 years some time ago, it's changing over 2 years, and then it may change over 6 months. We don't really know. And I think it's important to remember that the phone is only an artifact. And that artifact will find itself changing in multiple ways, like it has. Even this mobile phone has changed over this period of time. So I sometimes wonder what they plan to do. A revolutionary technology comes in which makes it far easier for you. Maybe, people seem to love planting things in their brain. So they decide that they plant it behind the ear or wherever. Neuralink is another story altogether. I'm saying, something else that is either more convenient or that, many people are having all kinds of anxieties and whatever because of the phone. And this might be able to control all of that. If the technology changes and you've linked everything up to this version of what you call the phone, I don't know what they plan to do. I don't know if they think about a tomorrow at all. Too often when you look at these techies and you look at Elon Musk, it tells you, you don't think about tomorrow. You think about your tomorrow. You're not thinking about tomorrow.
Yeah. So do you think it would be possible for the UIDAI to deactivate certain IDs?
Yeah, they have the power under the law.
So then that could...
They can omit or disable IDs. So listen, it's not only that. It's not only that they can deactivate. They can also, there can be... In Kanpur, when they caught these people creating IDs, all they had to do was to fashion fingerprints, and they were able to mix things together and create more numbers. They were actually getting onto the UID system, and it needs an enroller to either support you through this, or for you to be able to get their number, which is not so difficult. Many people have been sharing their number, so aaj tu mera kaam kar de, or whatever, in whatever form. So it's not only that you can delete people, it's also that you can add people who don't exist onto a system like this.
EPIC is linked to Aadhaar. When this deactivation happens only with the Aadhaar, then would it automatically result in this EPIC database also getting sort of similarly deletions?
See, if they insist that you should be on the UID system for you to you should be reflected here, then obviously that will happen. But I think we also need to consider, and I think the last elections there was some talk about this, and I really think it's a real problem that multiple IDs can be generated in the UID system because it is actually flimsy. And like somebody said, they went and gave their fingerprints, they got an ID, then they went about 3-4 years later because they couldn't find that. And by then their fingerprints had changed. So they got one more ID. They're not going to go back and report it. Now we've seen the amount of digital fraud that has been happening over time. And the UID itself has a whole set of things that have happened. They are not acknowledging it. Because
so you have duplicate EPICs, and you're talking about multiple Aadhaar IDs.
So you have an Aadhaar ID, then you have an Aadhaar ID, you can demand that you have a voter ID on it.
True.
The converse is also going to happen, no?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you have if I'm on the UID database, then why am I not getting a voter ID? That's all I'll have to do. It'll all become,
This whole line comes out that this Aadhaar is not a proof of citizenship.
Citizenship is a different story. It's an entirely different story. I don't think even the Election Commission is equipped to deal with the question of citizenship. What they do, which like I said, they did from the 90s, is some people being declared as doubtful voters and then having to do a special investigation on that. But that's it. But this is about people who don't exist being able to, they kept talking about ghosts and duplicates and frauds. Now, it looks like the way the system is working and the way different people like the Kanpur experience has shown us that you can create, ghosts and, frauds and duplicates in the UID system. And if you generate all those numbers, how will the Election Commission be able to refuse looking into it? What are they going to do with it? And if they are going to retain, I honestly expect.
So there is one theory again.
Just this one thing, that I seriously expect that the Election Commission is not going to give up its role as, to go and find people, and that would really be extreme. So if they are actually going to be going door to door, going from pillar to pillar, for the poor, for everyone to get enrolled, then the logic of this link with the UID is not explained at all. It's absolutely not explained. That your database is different from your people. What will you depend on? Your people or your database?
Okay.
So there will be, in any, even in this system, they always tell you it's 99.9%. It might actually be 80% or 60%. But if you say 99.9, then if there's a little error, you can say, that's, that 0.1%. That error is will be there in any system. Nothing is going to be perfect. But yours is a far more robust system. Why will you go to something unverified, doing nothing? What is this?
Yeah, we have established, I think, fairly clearly that there is, that logically it is not making sense. But having, being able to see that logically it's not making sense, if this trajectory were to sort of go forward, where is it heading towards? I think that is something...
See, we've been saying this for a long time. In 2015, when they started this NIRPEP, since then we've been saying, listen, you have a good, robust system. Please don't dilute it with the UID, because the UID is an unverified system. Now, if they decide to take it on and they say they're going to keep it in an Aadhaar vault so that nobody else can see it. I don't know, the Aadhaar vault is also a creation that they did as a justification for collecting all this data. Those keep changing, biometrics keep changing, addresses keep changing. You are not going to get any of that unless you're going to keep doing this exercise. So I don't know that linking two numbers together makes, in the case of the Election Commission, I would say, because one is a very robust number, linking a robust number with a very weak number is going to weaken the robust number. And that's where we are headed. So it basically means that a government can control it. We have seen that in Meerut,
control over the independent election.
It's not just executive, it's political control also, no? So if you take Meerut, Meerut, you'll find that Muslims will have their names being taken off. See, this is not in the world today, in the country today, whatever the establishment may be, people on the ground have been taught prejudice of very deep kind. So to exclude people, to throw them out, to say that you can't come anywhere here, to have every person who's walking on the road, if he looks like someone you don't like, you say, show me your Aadhaar number. This is completely illegal. But it happens all the time. So you are actually making people's identities vulnerable within the voting system.
Right.
Just think about what that means in a country where that's perhaps the most important right that people have.
Right. Last question, Usha. I've taken a lot of your time. So this, given that this is seriously problematic, if as a conscientious voter, one does not want to give their Aadhaar number to the Election Commission, what options do we have? Is there any option?
No. So now they're still considering what to do, because the 6B turned out to be a bad press for them. So now they are thinking of what? And they're saying, okay, you come and tell us why. You have to appear before us and you have to tell us why, which is another ridiculous kind of thing.
They have the infrastructure to meet lakhs of people who may want to appear before them. Is there people, they're going to receive you, give you tea and listen to you?
They know. See, ultimately, unfortunately in this country, we've caved in. And they're hoping that here also we will cave in. We'll say, "Theek hai, chalo, take it, It's inconvenient. I won't do this." But the truth is that there is a provision in the Aadhaar Act, Section 5, which says that these are the kinds of people for whom the system has to work to help them get the ID. It includes old people, disabled people, poor people, children, women, tribals, whatever. Everyone who's considered vulnerable, which is about 80 to 90% of our population, they are supposed to be particularly cared for. That's what the Election Commission should be looking to do, which is what they've been doing all this while. What we have seen in the UID system is that they have not done it. They've said, whoever it is, we will provide this fellow to come. You come and give your, you give the information and go. I want the kind of information I want, that's all. Because all of it, if we say Mr. Nilekani comes from business, Ram Sevak Sharma and Mr. AP Singh, who are from government, are all only interested in converting personal data into a digital economy, do we really expect that will be something that can help people? So this exclusion of people from databases from the electoral rolls can happen for multiple reasons. This facilitates it.
Of course.
And we also have to remember, it doesn't just facilitate getting off the voter list. It also facilitates disabling other services for the people that you don't like, from places where people have not voted for you. This is not a good way to go. I don't believe that the Election Commission, if it pauses to think, will go through with a thing like this. But if they go through with it, to me at least, it means that they did not pause to think.
Right. The Election Commission should pause to think, and hopefully they will reconsider this move to link EPIC with...
I just want to say one more thing, Sampath. There are many of us who worked on this for years. If they want help from us, we are offering it to them.
Right. Thank you so much, Usha. That's all I have for you in this episode of In Focus. Pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.